today. We'll start off our chapter meeting just by asking y'all to introduce yourselves and just give us your background and your current roles. So if we would like to go in the order of Trish, Regina, Amy, is that something you guys are comfortable with? Yep, perfect. Y'all can just jump in.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. So I am Trish Nicolas, Executive Vice President of RF Engage. And this is Reuter Finn, which is a global PR agency headquartered in New York. It's our new global center of excellence for strategic internal communications. I've got about 35 years of experience in PR, marketing, sales, and communications, worked across multiple industries with global agencies and also with leading companies. Most recently, before RF Engage, I was Executive Director of Public Relations, External Communications, and CEO Communications, and led a lot of crisis through the COVID pandemic at Wellstar Health System. And prior to that, I was Executive Vice President with Ogilvy PR and a partner with Jackson Spalding. And one of the things I wanted to mention too is because I said strategic internal communications, it's really important in PR to think about, your internal audiences as one of your publics in public relations, and perhaps the most important audience of all.
Thank you. Whenever you're ready, Regina.
Great. Can you hear me, Christian?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. My name is Regina Haas, and I am Senior Director of Communications at LexisNexis Risk Solutions here in town, and specifically for the insurance business. I have a team of communications professionals, both internal and external. We are a B2B2C company, so kind of cool that I get to straddle both sides of the fence. I've spent my career, I laugh, I say it's kind of building products, technology, healthcare, building products, technology, healthcare. This is my second corporate position, but I have been here for 12 years because we have gone into so many countries, gone into so many new markets, and I never thought I'd be able to say that, but spent a lot of my career on the agency side, both small and large, in Dallas and Houston. Went to the University of Texas at Austin, and I have a journalism degree specializing in public relations, but actually got my start in high school. It was an after-school job my senior year. So been doing it quite a long time and really, really enjoy it. Thanks.
All right, good evening, everyone. Hi, I'm Amy Korn. I'm a strategic communications professional, and I operate at the intersection of art and science. It's one of the reasons I love the topic today, PR and AI. I have 30 years of corporate marketing and communications experience, predominantly in the wireless industry for Verizon and also in financial services for a company headquartered there in Atlanta called Global Payments. I have been responsible for global marketing and communications for those companies, both internal, so I love that Trish mentioned that, and external. And currently I'm a professor at Georgia Tech. I lead a program targeted toward working professionals in the financial services industry for workforce development. And I'm a strategic communications consultant, predominantly for companies in the technology sector. So thank you for having us today.
Awesome. Thanks for giving us just some of your background and just your current roles. To kind of like set the stage for what we're going to discuss today with AI and PR. We just wanted to see if you guys could just give us a deeper understanding of what you would define or describe AI as. So just because us as students may not know very much, we may know very little, or we may know a lot. So we just wanted to see what y'all had to say about that.
I think you students may know more than we do in some cases. And I respect that. We're all learning from each other, right? You want me to kick it off, Christian, with a couple thoughts?
Sure, yeah, we can do the same order if that works with you all.
That's fine. That's fine. I always look something up. Like we use, like let's look it up. Mm-hmm. And IBM defines. I'm an IBM baby. My dad was with IBM and actually created the first personal computer. We moved to Boca Raton to roll out the first PC a long, long time ago. And so here I am on a PC. And IBM defines artificial intelligence, or AI, as combining computer science and robust data sets, and this is verbatim, right, to enable problem solving. And it says, the definition says, leveraging computers and machines to mimic the problem solving and decision making capabilities of the human mind. And I think the key word there is mimic. And, you know, let's talk about the beauty and the beast, right? So the beauty is that AI can handle and accelerate both mundane and very complex tasks, like hopefully solving for, you know, diagnoses and disease treatments. I know that AI is being used for this, you know, as we speak at the CDC and in other organizations, the Mayo Clinic, you know, and even cures, but also like enhancing traffic safety and transportation with self-driving cars. So, you know, some mundane things, but some very exciting and transformational things. That's the beauty, right? The beast is that there are a lot of unknowns still about the ultimate limitations of AI, or its, you know, its full potential to really radically change pretty much everything, okay? And we've only really begun to see things like litigation, like there's a whole group of authors now, including John Grisham and many others, well-recognizable names, who are suing OpenAI for copyright infringement. And, you know, so there's a lot going on. And there's also the potential for transformation of professions. But I think about it as, you know, it's not all intelligent. AI does not mean all intelligent. It means artificial intelligence. And it's really our responsibility, you know, to infuse the critical human elements that constitute resonant communication. So that's the beauty and the beast. A lot of potential and a lot of, you know, things that we don't know. So that's how I describe it.
Awesome. Thank you. Regina, you're on mute.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. How many
No
times
worries.
have we heard that in the last, how everybody, I wanted to make sure you guys didn't hear my dog protecting our house. I'll go into our parent company's definition of it. As a technology company, I think it's really important whenever anybody asks you as a communications professional, what's your definition of AI? You level set with them. Well, tell me what exactly you're talking about, because I've got two definitions. The one that we use at a corporate level is a machine-based system that can, for a given set of human-defined objectives, make predictions, recommendations, or decisions influencing real or virtual environments. AI systems are designed to operate with varying level of autonomy. We use AI quite a bit to help make decisions in our business. But what we're hearing about more and more and more is the chat GTPs of the world, the generative AI. So as a marketing team, we chose a definition very similar, you know, out there on the web, because I think it's important. Somebody could be thinking you're talking about generative AI. And when we talk about generative AI, we're talking about a broad label that's used to describe any type of AI that can be used to create new text, images, video, audio, code, or synthetic data. And I think that's what we're going to see in, you know, in our field quite a bit.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, the benefit of going last is I just tag on to all the brilliant things that everybody else has already said, but I'll offer two things. I also think it's important as communications professionals, we also simplify. And so for me, just adding to what the other professionals have said is this ability of a computer to perform human tasks. As Trish said, it is it's the ability. It isn't performing those tasks. It's artificial. And so I love the words enabling problem solving and performing tasks that are associated with intelligent beings. That's from Britannica as well. I also typically default to the IBM definition as well. I think for me, particularly as a professor of the practice at Georgia Tech and in my role as a communications consultant, I think, you know, it's really important for me from an AI perspective to be able to augment research and collect insights and help take a look at those insights. I think the other thing is from a global perspective. I'm sure you'll hear all three of us talk about the global nature of AI. For example, I was the communications leader for a global company I mentioned to you there in Atlanta, and AI can help really gain a global advantage when you think about so many languages as well as cultures, and AI can help perform and enable some of those tasks. I will just add on to the comment around self-driving cars. I was going to use this a little bit later, but I'll just throw it in now since we've already mentioned them. I had an opportunity to ride in a self-driving car in Phoenix, Arizona a couple of weeks ago, and I think it was a perfect example. The car can drive, and there's so many technology advancements in automobile and in transportation in general. But when you get that car at a four-way stop and there's cars at every stop and people crossing over in every direction, it freezes and it's waiting for everyone to clear. So that human interaction, that human intelligence, so it's very safe, but at the same time, that human interaction and intelligence is also missing. So I love the reference to the self-driving car in this as well.
That's really interesting. Thank you for sharing. So kind of, y'all have already kind of touched on it, regarding how you use AI in your role. But more specifically, could you provide some examples or just some practice, like ways that you use AI in your current roles?
Yeah, and I
Just
think
so
it's
we as
going to
PR.
become,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, absolutely, Christian. I think it's going to become a lot more prolific over time too, as as the tools advance and some of the kinks are worked out in terms of how we should be using them. But we're really embracing AI at RF Engage and across Reuter Finn as an accelerator and a Kickstarter. I talk about like just informing and inspiring, perhaps, in the work that we're doing. So, most of the work, as I mentioned, that we're doing with RF Engage, not across Reuter Finn, but with my team globally, is with internal audiences and employee engagement and change communications. And we're really, thinking about, we're using ChatGPT, definitely. We've got some people across the team, and I asked them, like, what are you using the most? What are your favorite tools? So Jasper came up, Google Bard came up, Midjourney came up, and then embedded tools like that have AI, like in Canva. And so some examples are, if you go to our RF Engage social media page, and this is not a, hey, everybody follow us. It's really, there was a really cool, we launched RF Engage 2 weeks ago, and one of the first pieces of content that was created on my team is a carousel. And I was like, oh, this is really great content. She's like, yeah, I used AI to do it. And I was like, oh, it's so cool. So she used Canva, like the AI tool in Canva. And yes, we had to go in and make some changes. There were some things that were confuddled and like mixed in that didn't really make sense together. And, some things that were bleeding off the edges, but it was a great Kickstarter. It was a great Kickstarter for the content that she was creating. And all she had to do was kind of, layer on that human thinking and creativity to enhance it and get it ready to roll out. I've tapped ChatGPT too for like creating a strategy for, okay, we're about to roll out RF Engage, both internally at Reuter Finn and globally. I know how to run a communication strategy, but I want to know, what am I missing? Like, what's out there that I could pull from? And so that's helpful, just to kind of inform and inspire, where are the gaps, or I haven't really thought about framing it that way. We're always layering on the human element, but we are using it to kind of be a Kickstarter and accelerator. And then we've got, there's another woman on my team who's using it to summarize articles, so that she doesn't have to kind of like in my day it was called the Cliff Notes, right? To do the Cliff Notes versions of articles, either for internal consumption or for, how can we utilize and shape this content for our clients, applying the human element, but giving us that summary that we can start with. So that's really how we're using it. And one thing that's really important, one of my team members said, is always cite the source, because, you want to protect yourself, but also protect the original authors as best you can, whenever it's evident, or, certainly cite the source, the tool that you're using when you're publishing any of that content internally or externally. So those are a couple examples.
Yep. From our end, we're doing a lot of testing in the communications and with our marketing peers. So Jasper AI, definitely. I'm amazed by that tool's ability to develop content, social media, build you a campaign, take your brand, your brand persona, your brand voice, and incorporate that in. The stuff that we never really knew was AI, but Grammarly, for example, all the stuff, auto text and things, you're like, oh yeah, that's AI. We're also looking at presentations AI for presentations, and definitely Bard. Creatopi, which is an ad design automation platform, and Synthesia, an AI video generator. We're definitely looking into all of those as a comms department.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'll just add, Cision, of course, recently this year introduced their product. So several clients that I have utilize that, as well as all the ones that are already mentioned. Jasper, for sure, definitely a fan. And then the only other thing that I'll mention is a comment that was just made by Regina. We forget sometimes about the tools we utilize every day are actually AI. So Google Analytics is powered by AI. So let's not forget about things that we utilize every day that can help us as professionals, whether that's a muckrack tool, whether it's Cision, whether it's Google. Those tools are all leveraging AI. And again, how we incorporate those into our profession and utilize those can also make those tools better in the future.
I've seen it pop up on LinkedIn too, like it says, using AI, or do you want to use AI? So it's everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the descriptions for photos and things like that can help people find your content. I always find it's interesting. A red tree, and you're like, well, you could call it a red tree, but I really want to use some more keywords.
Absolutely. I'll just add to that, Christian, just real quick. I think I would just also like us to expand our thinking. And I think that's a good example. We think about words, but when we talk about the future of AI, the video and drawings. And I attended a seminar recently around AI in the arts, meaning fine arts. So, let's not forget about not just the written portion of what we do, but also the visual and pertaining to all the senses.
Definitely. And it's funny because today Canva actually, I don't know if you all saw, but they did like fully launch their AI tools, and that's something that most of the day at work today we were actually going through those and just seeing what we could use and what we couldn't use. So it's very interesting that y'all did mention that. But just kind of to not to like spring a question on you all, so either of you guys can answer. But I definitely know that there might not be a very clear understanding of what is generative AI versus like regular AI. So is there like if you guys want to jump in and kind of respond to that if you have a response? Because I know you mentioned that before.
Well, generative AI is going to ChatGPT is a good example of that. You type in a set of parameters, and it's going to give you something that that it thinks you want, either a piece of content or a piece of artwork. Lisa mentioned it can generate anything. It can turn my face into a cartoon, or create a totally new face. We see it all the time. You could, instead of going to Shutterstock or another photo, you could have an AI generated person for a campaign. And I know we're going to jump into the pros and cons of that, but sometimes it can pull, like you said, the authors from places where you don't, it's not it is copyrighted, and it shouldn't be used, contain biases and things like that. But I'll stop, and we can go into that next.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I definitely think that was a question that when you hear that word, you don't really know exactly what it means. So, but thank you for informing us. So kind of moving on, you guys have also kind of touched on it so far, but what are specific pros and cons that of using AI in the PR world?
Yeah, one of my friends and former colleagues, she talks about using AI as one of your employees, like thinking about somebody on your team, and really kind of tasking AI with mundane tasks, and like, creating starter content that can help the rest of the team. So like a colleague, and that can help, accelerate work streams. Of course, you're layering on the human aspects like strategic thinking and audience relevance. But, the pros are that we can really achieve greater efficiency and productivity and often cost savings and containment. And then, really by allowing or using AI to handle some of the tactical things, it really helps us all achieve as communicators, achieve and contribute higher level thinking, and kind of forces us into that strategic realm and those creative domains of our profession, right? Really gets us into, more of the, is this the right tone? Is this the right voice? Is this the right content? Is this accurate? Is this going to achieve the outcomes that we want to create? And it really kind of forces us into that space. And I think that's a good thing. But one of the risks really is liability, and we're seeing a lot of this. I gave a presentation back in, I think, February or March, and ChatGPT was brand spanking new at that time, and the news about Samsung IP leaks had just come out. That's intellectual property, right? That's proprietary to a company, and often is their, the core of their bread and butter. And people were kind of entering in. I think at Samsung they were entering in things that was IP, and it was being basically fed into I think ChatGPT was the tool they were using. So liability is a huge risk, and I think we've only begun to see the legal ramifications of AI through copyright infringement. I mean, we talked about the authors who've joined to sue OpenAI. There's IP leaks, which I mentioned. There's fraud. There's security concerns. And then, companies are really kind of scrambling to create policies and their own guardrails and their own tools and platforms to help, attempt to mitigate those infractions. But there's also this really clear and present kind of danger, I guess, of the potential impact on human lives when, decisions are being made by artificial intelligence, which, intrinsically is not empathetic. And we know that empathy is really critical. And I think that human element is really, really important right now in the moment, more than ever. It always is. But right now in the moment, I think it's kind of ironic, right, that we're leaning into AI, and there's this proliferation of AI tools and technologies and adoption, but we're in a moment when we're really craving human interaction, right? And mental health challenges are prevalent. We've got 77% of the global workforce that's disengaged. That came from the 2023 Global State of the Workplace study back in July. 77% of workers are disengaged. And people are just craving human interaction more than ever. We're seeing in the world of communications, the engagement within the companies that we serve is really predominantly on human storytelling and human imagery, right? And people that they know or people that they can identify with. And so it's just an interesting juxtaposition, and all this while we're, navigating this ongoing kind of confusing remote and hybrid post-pandemic world that can be very isolating. So kind of moving from the lemonades, from the lemons back to the lemonade, AI is really, a tool that can help automate some of the most mundane communications tasks so that we, as communicators, can focus more on the strategy and that human storytelling, the human empathetic element, convening of people, which is the role and responsibility of communications to a large point. And not just the storytelling, but the story doing, like creating those interactions, creating those, those happenings that then become, that stories flow out of. So that's kind of the pros and cons, and how, where I see it really landing is making sure that we're layering on that human element.
Definitely. Thank you.
Absolutely. I agree with all of it. And that is a lot of the notes that I had as well, making us more efficient and effective. I'll give you a term that everybody needs to know if you don't know it already, and it's called hallucinations. Do you guys know what a hallucination is? It's when AI makes up something because it either didn't find enough information to make a decision or create some content, or it just didn't find anything. It will guess. It will make it will make up information. We've done various checks on some of our spokespeople across the company, and the funny stuff that comes up about somebody's is the president of Yale, and clearly they're not. But that intersection, there's definitely a need for human oversight, absolutely, and the empathy is huge, I think. But today we are being asked to do more and more and more. So being able to do things smarter and faster. In a lot of cases, AI is going to be smarter and sound better than some of us. but it's going to allow us to do even more cool things, I think, in communications.
I agree with all of that. I'll just add a couple of thoughts on the pro. I mentioned, again, working for global companies, that availability of 24/7 from a pro perspective. Again, faster. The word crisis was mentioned earlier. So when you're working for a global company, you're always awake. And again, that availability 24/7, the invention and that kind of trial or test, and particularly high risk environments, is also another pro. I would agree in terms of the con. I think that human interaction, that empathy, engagement, that relationship building is lacking in AI, but I think that's where we, again, in our profession and as communications professionals, bring in, as was said earlier, that strategic thinking and that human element, because we all crave it. So I'll agree with everything already said.
Awesome, thank you. So also, you guys have also mentioned quite a bit about your written content and all of that. So how do you see AI impacting press releases and other written content, and how can we like leverage AI to do so? It might be a little bit repetitive, but if you guys have anything else to add, that would be great.
That's okay. I think it's a good riff. Listen, I mean, like I said before, I think there's a lot we don't know. I mean, where are we headed, with press releases and content and all the things, that we're doing in communications? We don't really know. I mean, it could be that press releases become the stories, or that stories write themselves without a press release. Or we could see a departure from press releases into, somebody was saying, more dynamic storytelling that's aided by AI tools. Because, yeah, you can create videos, which is something it can be very hard, cumbersome and expensive for companies. And, AI can help to do that and create some of the visual content, which people are migrating to, by the way. We're seeing a really significant uptick, away from written content and toward podcast and video and illustrative content. So that's a huge trend, and we're coaching our clients in that direction. But let's broaden it a little bit from press releases, because press releases are just one tactic, and we don't really know where that's going to go. And actually, press releases in the course of my career in the past 35 years, how we use them and how we write them and how they're being used has changed radically. But think about how you can use AI more holistically as a professional communicator. I'm going to rattle off a few things here, and I'm sure Regina and Amy will add to it. But think about shaping campaign strategy. I've talked about how I use ChatGPT to kind of fill in the blanks and what am I missing here, and give me some inspiration. Shaping campaign strategy, conducting market research, drafting content, including press releases, building a content calendar, summarizing published materials, initiating a POV, which is a point of view. We're doing these all the time, or a stance on a topic. I had to do stances for Wellstar Health System many, many times during COVID with vaccinations and treatments and misinformation that was out there. But you can use, AI to help with giving you a kickstart on that. Planning communications for a crisis, translating content into other languages. So there are a lot of different ways that we can use it beyond press releases, and that we are using it. And I think it's really important to strike, that balance, like we said, like umpteen times now, between the automation and the personal touch, and making sure that you're providing that human overlay. So, a few examples.
Thank you.
Amy, you want to go next, and then I'll take us home on that one?
Sure, absolutely. I'll just add a couple of thoughts. And again, agree with everything that was said. And I think about it this way in terms of, again, that research and drafting. So I even got hung up, a little bit on the question in terms of how will it affect writing press releases. But I also agree with the comments around, we can't just think about press releases. There's so many tools and ways we communicate and how we communicate as human beings and individuals. I'll add, we talked a little bit about video, but think about evolution of other products and services. We mentioned self-driving cars earlier. So think about the evolution and the invention in transportation, or whether that is communicating via even a computer today, right? That didn't exist a long time ago. We also mentioned engagement earlier. So just think about how AI can assist in audience, both internal and external audience engagement, and influencers, how you may be able to take speech to text, for example, or transform social media. Social media as we know it exists today, and utilization of social media, whether that's in a press release format or something else, it can transform with how AI can be utilized. The last thing I'll mention, because crisis was mentioned a couple of different times, but just overall reputation management, not only of companies, but individuals, and think about just overall reputation as well, and how you might be able to utilize AI in that.
So I get to jump off of what everybody said now, and this is exciting for me. I do think it's going to help us write press releases more quickly in the future. I do think there are a couple of considerations. We could be required to pass a test from journalists, validate with a newswire that human approval was part of our process. You guys are too young to remember a specific instance where a company put a press release out on the wire that was not allowed. It wasn't from the company. It was huge. It made stocks crash and things like that, which is why now when you send a news release over the wire, you have to validate that it is coming from the company that sends it. Amy, you mentioned Cision, and they sent me a note this week that was like, "Hey Regina, it really would be good if you'd send some video with your announcement." And same thing. I think that would be huge. AI could really help us do that and get that engagement. Same thing. We were asking some customers at a meeting a couple of weeks ago, how many of them had downloaded our white paper, and they're like, "Oh, we don't have time to email and all that." And we're saying, "Okay, we've got to get some videos out," and I think it's gonna help us. I think it was Trish that mentioned storytelling, and I'm going to give you guys another tool. It doesn't utilize AI yet, but it is so cool for storytelling. It's only a matter of time, and it's called shorthand. And I'd recommend you guys go out and look at shorthand. You can even look on our website, risk.lexisnexis.com, or our parent company, relics.com. And it's how we tell our own stories in long form feature. Just really cool graphics. Again, it allows us to tell our own stories and get those out there. But it's only a matter of time before AI makes it even easier for us to put those stories out, I think.
Yeah, there's just one quick note on that. It's not eye-centric, but one of the things that we're talking about a lot with our clients is that for better or for worse, and people entering the workforce are probably going to hate this, but work is changing. Like we're all, there are hybrid jobs now, there are remote jobs, there's just a lot of work hours. There's a lot of talk about flexibility, and some companies are actually doing that. But for better or for worse, people are consuming videos and podcasts off hours, like during breaks or on commutes. And so, we're taking that into consideration when we're creating content, that's video and podcast, because if it's written content, they're probably going to be consuming it during work hours. Not that we're trying to get people to work outside of hours. That's not the intent, but we just know that's a consumer trend. So why don't you just adopt that and recognize that people might listen to a podcast or watch a video, during a break or while they're on vacation or after hours. So we're talking a lot about that. Little riff.
Yeah, meeting people where they are. I'm a person that likes to read the transcripts of TED Talks. So having that video and then transcribed too, because it's gonna take all kinds.
Absolutely. Yep.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. So, kind of moving on. So we as students, and as younger people are always not being told, but always have the assumption of, okay, AI is on its way. What are we going to be needed for? Because that's something that is said out there that all the time. So I just wanted to ask you all, where do you see AI in 10, 20 years? And how is that going to affect us?
Regina, why don't you go first on that one?
Sure. I only see it helping us be better and do better. And, the field has changed, the tools have changed, but I do think that storytelling element, the human element is going to be something people need, a source of truth. being a source of truth for our customers, for consumers. That's going to be really important. I think about the QR code. It came in hot, it died down, and now it's come back. I think AI is going to be really similar in its evolution. I think it's going to help us do our jobs more effectively, more efficiently. And I'm a glass half full, so I don't think it's going to take away. It may take away a few jobs, but that allows people to do other things even better.
I'll go last, Amy. You can go.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I would agree. I think what I would encourage everyone to think is you are a consumer. So you are a consumer of information. So put yourself in the seat of the audience. So when you do that, again, these questions that are posed, you can think about, how do I want to receive? Just like Trish mentioned earlier, if you prefer to receive information in video format and certain times a day, guess what? You're not the only person. So in terms of when you think about your profession, how it might impact you, I would also agree with Regina's comments. Yeah, it may change, but change the profession slightly, but at the end of the day, you are a human, you are a consumer, you can impact and influence. And here's the other thing that I would say. You can help drive what AI does in the profession. I know you're asking us what we think, but you are the folks who are going to drive this in the future. So how do you envision it? What would you like to see? You are inventors, and you are a generation that has a different experience than what I have or anyone else on the call. And so each of those aspects of your intelligence can inform what AI does in the future as well. So you have the opportunity to shape your profession.
I love that. And it's so true. And what I was thinking about, and is exactly what, building on what Regina and Amy were saying, is that it's really a question of embrace or displace, right? So communicators who are embracing AI to inform and inspire their work, which I know all of you will do, not replace our work, will benefit the most. And if we don't embrace AI to inform and inspire the work that we're doing, it has a greater potential to displace our value. And our value as communications professionals is not on content generation or output. It's all about that human element. It's about convening and engaging people, humans, right? Fostering conversation, human story shaping and storytelling, and then creating opportunities, like I said, for story doing. So I think it's really a question of embrace or displace, and hope we'll all be in the hashtag team embrace category.
Yeah. One of the things that we haven't talked about much is we did talk about market research, but we didn't talk about measurement. And measurement is a huge area where AI can really take off. I'm going to date myself, but I used to we all did. We cut out newspaper clippings and we measured them. And that's how we figured out how much value a piece of coverage had. The fact that I don't have to do clip books. Oh my gosh, the fact that I don't have to do clip books anymore. We sent out press releases via fax machine and mail. AI only has, and thank goodness we're not there anymore. But we have the opportunity to take AI and make some of the mundane stuff we do even easier. It's awesome.
Be thankful you guys are not working with glue sticks and counting lines and words in newspaper clippings.
Awesome. Thank y'all. We really appreciate you sharing. So definitely encouraging to hear that we are not getting cut out of the PR world, but we are going to be good stewards of it through AI. So thank you for sharing. So usually at the end of each chapter meeting, we open the floor and have students come up and ask questions. But before we do that, we ask the same last question to all of our guest speakers who come and join us, just as a tradition with our chapter. So for you, what is the best piece of advice that you could give one of us emerging PR professionals?
Okay, I'm going to rattle off a few things here, because this is, I love helping the next generation of communications professionals and our current generation of communications professionals to just drive communications excellence. And I would say We don't want to feed the beast that communications and PR is about pushing out information and loads of content. Communications at its core is two-way or multi-way. So that's one thing, like remember that, right? Don't, we have to educate others around us, our business partners, our clients, our colleagues, that communications is not about output, it's about outcomes. That would be one thing, like just focus on that. Don't feed the beast of output, right? Be a convener and a trusted counselor. That's the role that we need to be playing, particularly with all the things we were talking about, the human element. Focus on strategies before tactics, right? I see a lot of plans where it's like, hey, I need to solve this problem, and boom, spray and pray, lots of tactics. Focus on strategic thinking. That means, what is the problem we're trying to solve? Who are the audiences we're trying to reach? What are the objectives and the outcomes that we want to achieve? And then how do we get there? So strategies before tactics. Know your audiences deeply. I'm speaking at PRSA in a week in Nashville about moving from demographics to psychographics, and why understanding your audiences is critical to effective and resonant communications. You must know your audiences, whether you're an agency side or client side or a freelancer, whatever. You've got to understand who are your audiences, not just what their demographics are, but their psychographics. What are their interests, their beliefs? How do we meet them where they're at, like Regina said. Or Amy said, right? We've got to know our audiences better than anybody else. Ask tons of questions, be relentlessly curious, always work on serving and not selling, and the only constant is change, to be resilient. And that's not one thing, it's probably 8 things, but hopefully that'll help you all in your careers and moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you.
Here I go. My advice, 2 things that are similar: the curiosity, and actually, this is coming from a sense of self, but it also applies to the audience. You've got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. 2 ears. Listen, absorb, analyze, contribute, for yourself and for the betterment of your profession. But the 2 ears and the 1 mouth, also, that is what you need to listen to that audience and understand. I would say learn to be self-aware. What are those things that you do really well? What gets you out of bed in the morning? I get asked on a regular basis, Regina, do you want to be a CMO or do you want to be a chief communications officer? Communications is what gets me out of bed in the morning. Can I do marketing? Yes. But do I want to do sales leads and other things like that? No, it doesn't get me out of bed in the morning. So being self-aware, knowing where you can improve or what skills you need is really important. And it's going to be so valuable for you.
Thank you.
Well, I'll tag on. I had mentioned the curious as well earlier, so I'll just tag on. I think all of us have said that. Be curious. Again, think broadly about your profession. And again, I'll repeat what Regina said in terms of what gets you up at night. But I also would just say, when you think broadly and you're curious, what gets you up, what gets you excited, follow that. Don't think so narrow about your profession that you don't explore other industries. I'm going to date myself here, and I can do this because I have a 30-year-old daughter, and she laughs every time I say this. I didn't know what wireless was when I started working in the wireless business over 30 years ago. Phones were not smartphones that you all have, and that's all you've ever known. You could only talk on the phone. You couldn't do anything else. But that propelled my career from a sales, marketing, and communications professional. So think broadly, look in industries where there are challenges. We've mentioned crisis, we've mentioned innovation. Where are industries where you are curious about what's happening in an industry? Don't just think, I have to go work at an agency or I have to go work at a company. You can do both, do them all, and think broadly, be curious, and don't think just PR. You are a communications professional. And I'll go back to what Trish said earlier in terms of your audience. And as a communications professional, you are the human element that will push this profession forward.
I love that. You just made me think of something too, Amy, when you were talking about, and it kind of ties back to where I said resilient, the only constant is change. I mean, I started out my career in marketing administration for a technology company, and it wasn't where I wanted to be, but it was kind of the pathway or the stepping stone to get there. And I tell my kids this all the time. My daughter's in college. My son just graduated a year ago. And I tell them, you know, everything's a stepping stone. So I started out, the first job I took was not where I thought I would end up, and it's not where I'm at. And then, you know, most recently, I mean, I, you know, kind of worked on the technology side. I was in sales. I was in international sales for a technology company, like one of the first email if you'd ever told me that I was going to be in sales for, you know, an email system, I would have been like, no, I'm not. But it was great because it opened up a lot of opportunities, and I learned so much from it. So, you know, we're still learning, you know, 35 years into our careers. When I was at Wellstar, I was like, oh, I haven't done healthcare yet. I've done technology. I'll try healthcare. 4 months later, COVID hit. I was blonde when I started there. I'm gray now. You know, leading through crisis. I think I've been very clear. I don't want to do crisis communications. Everything was crisis for everybody, but it was an important moment. And I was like, we're not reaching children and educators and parents. And I was like, I'm going to write a rap. And we wrote and produced a rap that ran as a commercial across all of, you know, Georgia, and in all of the, you know, every location in the health system. I'd never written a rap before. I never produced a rap before, but I knew that we needed to engage our audience and meet them where they were at and equip people to navigate COVID. Recently, we had a client come to us and said, hey, we want to show the story of gene therapy and in our, you know, Center of Excellence in New Jersey. And I co-produced and basically wrote a virtual reality. My kids thought it was hilarious. They're like, oh my gosh, my mom's going to talk about her VR all the time because she's talking about the rap for 2 years. But, you know, we're constantly learning and constantly being curious and constantly challenging ourselves to learn new things. And I encourage you all to do the same thing. Don't think that, you know, that wherever you land is where you're going to end up eventually, because it's such a rich, you know, rich journey in your career as a communicator. So hopefully that inspired you guys to think. And yeah, I wrote a rap. I keep telling the kids, they're like, oh, Mom, so embarrassing, but it's fun. It's fun to learn kind of new stuff and challenge ourselves.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Definitely very useful advice. So very practical. So at this point, does anyone in the room have any questions that they would like to come out? Yeah, you can come on up. Yep, you can come on up.
Oh, I didn't even know Christian was in the same literal room as everybody. Hi.
He is.
Hey.
We're like watching him from here. Hi everyone. My name is Ella Smith. And I have a question that's kind of directed at Trish. Actually, Trish, like literally 2 weeks ago, I had no idea what psychographics was, but now I do. So now I have a question for you. So like in psychographics, I learned about like vowels and like how important that is. But I was just curious, like, is AI affecting like psychographics? Because it sounds like you're encouraging people to move from demographics to psychographics. Is AI affecting that, or just like what is that shift exactly that you're talking about?
I think AI, well, so I don't know the exact answer, but I can give you kind of what I think, and I'd love for Amy and Regina to chime in here too. So let me give an example of psychographics, and I don't know if you guys are, you know, what social media platform is the hot thing now with students. But something that I show, and I'll be showing it at PRSA, is there's a photo of King Charles and his demographics. So he's male, he was born in 1948, he's been married twice, he lives in a castle, he's wealthy, and he's famous. Those are his demographics. And then I put up a photo of Ozzy Osbourne. You know who Ozzy Osbourne is? Okay, he's a rock star.
Okay.
But like, you know, hard rock. And he's not King Charles, but he has exactly the same demographics. Exactly the same, right? Born in 1948, married twice, lives in a castle, not the same castle, right? Castle, he's wealthy and he's famous. At least with our generation. And so, you know, that's why it's important to understand the psychographics, because you're not necessarily going to communicate with them both in the same way, via the same channels, with the same voice, with the same content, right? And so, yes, psychographics are very important. Now, is AI affecting that? Yeah, it is. What I don't know is, you know, because you can, what's the word, kind of quantify some psychographics, like what are their interests, their beliefs. You can quantify and categorize those into avatars or, what's the other word that we use? Personas, sorry, into avatars or personas. And that can be a part of that avatar or persona is what their psychographics are. So yeah, you can use AI for that. Have we done it yet? No, I haven't. Maybe other people are.
I think AI is going to get it wrong a little bit initially. Again, with the hallucinations and things like that, I think it's going to make assumptions, which could potentially offend people, which is why the human element is so important. However, I think it's going to help us get it right in the long run, because I can't tell you how much writing I have done in the past where I've had to do he dash she over and over and over again. And, every time somebody said there, we had to correct it, and it is so refreshing just to be able to say there. So I think it's gonna help us get there more easily. I think making sure things are, gosh, for a lack of a better term, kind of labeled initially, so that AI can learn. It's going to get it wrong, but may help.
I would just add to that. I agree with everything, and I think again something that the generation can think about is how can AI utilize both the demographics and psychographics to eliminate biases. And so, so we think, again, if we think King Charles and Ozzy Osbourne, there's, they're two different people, and we inflict bias on both for different reasons, particularly based upon their demographics, but then looking at the psychographics as well. So I'm hopeful that, in the future, that AI can help eliminate some of those biases.
Yeah, which is the challenge right now with AI, is the bias. Yeah.
Absolutely.
A good question. That's a great question. And I put in the chat the slide that I presented a week or so ago. It's got a no logo for our business, but yeah, it's just, if anybody wants to know what Ozzy Osbourne looks like, it's in the chat.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Trish.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any questions for our speakers? We should have time for like one or two more.
Christian, this is Polly House.
Hey, Dr. House, how are
How
you?
are you? I don't
Doing
want to
well.
take any time from the students, so but I had one question to ask our guests, which, first of all, thank you guys for doing this for our students. They really appreciate it. And my dog is now going to hack in the background. So, and I'm in my dark living room, so I have no clue how badly I'm looking or whatever. So, but anyway, so can I ask my question, Christian, or do you have any
Yes, of course.
student questions? All right, guys, I'm getting ready to take the deep dive and teach a PR and AI class starting in the spring semester. So I've been doing a lot of research, taking a lot of webinars and courses, and of course everything that you guys are saying. I'm taking mad notes here. But so what's your advice to me as a professor of what sorts of things do you think would be valuable to emphasize for these students? It's designed to be an introductory course to give them the basics, understand the good, the bad, the ugly, develop some skills with prompt generation and prompt engineering, all that good stuff. But what's your advice to me? What would you like me to do to help teach these students so that when they come to work for you, they'll be equipped?
Prompt engineering is huge. If I understand the term correct, because I think my digital team is teaching us what that means. And let me see if I know it, or if we're talking about something else that the students need to know about as well. But it is how to input information in order to get the best outcome of what you need. Is that right, Dr. House?
How to ask the right questions.
Yes.
How to then structure your questions in a way that you get more and better answers out of them. It's
Yes.
an incredible skill set that I think is getting more and more valued based on what I've seen. So that's good. Prompt engineering, I call it effective prompt writing. So that's good. That's good. I'm doing that. So thanks. Anything else you all can think of?
I would recommend too, Regina gave a list, and I shared some, all of us did, shared like what we're using or what our teams are using.
Yes.
And I think that really equipping, and that's changing every day, right? There are new tools that are coming out every day. But I think kind of an up-to-date list, and maybe that could be kind of crowdsourced from your students too, and engage them in that process of finding and identifying the tools and how to use them, and sharing that in the classroom. That doesn't necessarily need to all be on you, and we have them pull some of that through. The other thing too, I think we talked a lot about the human overlay, the oversight, the human, part of it, and I think that would be a really important part of your class too, is helping the students to know where AI stops and starts, and what do we need to do as communications professionals to embrace it and to add value beyond what AI can do.
I've taken that away. That's not just it's the bright shiny object right now. It's lots of tricks and games and fun to watch. It's kind of like magic, but your point of emphasizing the human role is going to be very valuable. Thank you for that.
And I'll just
Go
sorry, I'll
ahead.
just add, actually pointing back to something Trish and we each then touched on, is it's not just a content generation tool. And this isn't a content generation profession. So I think just, again, embracing and talking about all the aspects of AI and what it can or has the potential to do and how it can influence the profession.
Yeah, I know everything from the brainstorming to measurement to research, everything. So good. Thank you guys. I appreciate that.
Well, and short little exercises on making sure the human element is in there. I got something the other day and I was like, I really think AI wrote this because just the short little pieces. That's always a really, really good exercise for students.
Yeah, everything I'm seeing is, you just can't push generate and use what you're given. You have to look at everything and you have to modify everything and adapt it. And as you all were saying,
use it to inform and inspire. And Amy said something that I wrote down earlier because I thought it was, I think you said you cited Britannica, but it was AI is performing tasks that don't do the problem solving, but that enable problem solving. And I thought that was really powerful, and I think that's something that the students could benefit from, and is important. It's not doing the problem solving, it's enabling by informing and inspiring you to solve the problems with the aid of your employee or your team member, which is AI.
Well, and also know that we're building the playbook as we go as well. So my team, that's when I talked about the tools that we're testing. We're building a playbook. What are the rules of the road? What can we do? What shouldn't we do? Things like that as a team. And then working in what our technology team allows us to do, because it is, the proprietary nature of a lot of our businesses that prevents you from doing everything you want to do sometimes.
Good.